Morning. We are going to discuss this week's assignment, which is to write an essay on the writing prompt on the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. So I've gone ahead and typed the writing prompt here, and we're gonna go ahead and break it down. Um, Along the way, I will discuss some of the writing techniques for an essay. I know that writing a full essay can be difficult, but I just hope that by this time of the year, you have the basics down. And please just write me or join the Zoom conference if you have any questions on how to do this or if you get stuck along the way. So let's go ahead and break the writing prompt down. In some informational texts, authors try to persuade readers to accept a specific point of view about a subject. So in this case, Mr. Douglas is trying to get us to accept that slavery is evil. In what way does Frederick Douglass use elements of figurative language to express the anger and torment he feels and help readers to understand it? So Frederick Douglass uses figurative language. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Let's go back to this. I wanted to do that. He uses figurative language to express anger and torment, but he does that so that the audience can understand it. So his audience most likely was not going to be other slaves because most of them couldn't read. And so his audience would be the white people to persuade them that what they were doing to the slaves was wrong or evil. And so he uses figurative language in order to do that. Okay, so that's the first part. How does the use of these figurative language strengthen his argument against slavery? So this is definitely something we have to address. I'm going to put that as another color since that's another item that we have to address. And then use your understanding of figurative language and informational text elements to determine how successfully Douglass uses them in the narrative. And I'm going to put that as the third color. All right. So we have to answer quite a few items in this. So this is how I would do it. First of all, I would go through the text and I would find examples of figurative language and use that to build my argument. There are many, many examples. I went into the text and I pulled out a few. And here they are. Let's not get to my graphic organizer yet. Okay, so he talks about how reading the book by Sheridan gives voice or gives tongue to what was going on in his heart or soul. So that's personification, right? Because words don't speak. Well, yeah, words don't speak. Or, anyways, the dialogues themselves don't actually speak. And so that's personification. Later, the second half or near the end, he's talking about the effect. And this is very important because we have to talk about the anger and torment he feels. And he says that the knowledge stung his soul. And so that, again, is personification because knowledge doesn't have a stinger like a bee or an insect. And so this is personification again. He also he uses metaphors. He refers to knowledge as bread, bread for the soul. He refers to masters as robbers. And he talks about having the knowledge threw him into a horrible pit. There are more if you want to find them. Those are just some that I brought from the text. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to develop this essay through some kind of structure. And you know always that you must have three parts to your essay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this on another page so it'll all be there on one page. so we could see it clearly. All right, so we're going to have our introduction, our body, and our conclusion, and it's up to us how many body paragraphs we want. Okay, you could easily make this 2 body paragraphs, one for the personification and one for the metaphors, but it's fine to just do one paragraph. So we're going to have our introduction, and it might be difficult to do a personal connection here. So I would recommend that you give background to the story. And why does Douglas use figurative language to persuade his audience? And here you could discuss what I discussed at the beginning, how his audience was most likely white people who owned slaves, or lawmakers who had the power to change the laws. And why does he use the figurative language? Because figurative language is powerful language to help people visualize or understand what other people are going through. And so these this use of personification and metaphor can help people understand that. And so I would give the background of, when he was a child, how he had to struggle to learn to read. It was against the law. And then how it tormented him and how he used figurative language to help his audience understand. And then, of course, your thesis statement comes directly from here. What are you trying to prove? That Frederick Douglass, in his autobiography, used figurative language to express anger and torment to help his reader understand it, and using this figurative language strengthened his argument against slavery. So you're getting it right from here. And notice I'm going to save this blue. That's going to be for my conclusion, to talk about how successful he was. Okay, so there we go. You use this to write your introduction, and then we're going to use this. This is the figurative language, and then how does it strengthen his argument? So I would do this. This is something that we don't normally do, but in your body, I would put the explain the figurative language, and then notice you have to explain how did it strengthen his argument. So then I'm going to explain how the figurative language strengthened his argument. Language. Thank you. Let me give you an example of this. So in the body paragraph, I would start off with my topic sentence of how Frederick Douglass used powerful figurative language to help his audience understand the evils of slavery. And then I would pick one. I would probably, remember, you need at least 2 pieces of evidence. So why don't you pick at least one personification or one metaphor, or you could do just personification, or you could do just metaphor, or like I said, you could even do 1 paragraph on personification, 1 paragraph on metaphor, and obviously that would be a better essay, because your argument would be stronger because you have more pieces of evidence. Definitely in high school, in college, the more evidence you have, the better. But for a class essay, since typically you only write it in 40 to 50 minutes, you only need 2 pieces of evidence for me. So for example, I'm going to pick horrible pit, okay, just randomly. So I would go into the text and I would get the actual part of the sentence or the sentence that it came from, and then I would explain it. So he uses the term horrible pit to describe the feelings that he has after learning knowledge. He's been thrown inside of a pit and he can't dig himself out. Now that he knows something, he can't unlearn it. And then I'm going to do what the prompt says, the second thing. how does that figurative language strengthen his argument? And the reason it strengthens his argument is that it gives the audience or the reader a visual to understand someone else's torment or someone else's anger or agony. And so the idea of being stuck in a pit and not being able to dig yourself out is just, it symbolizes the torment that he is going through in his mind because he is in the pit of slavery and he can't dig himself out to freedom. And once he knows this, he's stuck in that pit. So then that's how you would do both of those. And then finally, let's go to the conclusion. So you're going to restate your thesis. So you're going to restate these ideas here, but you just change the order of the words. And finally, for the conclusion, in the hook, you talked about the figurative language and you gave the background of it. So now you're moving forward by talking about how those things, how Douglas used those pieces of figurative language successfully in his narrative. How was using those pieces of figurative language, how does it make his narrative successful? So you're going to write 4 sentences about how this writing probably wouldn't be as good if there hadn't been figurative language in it. If he had just written a straightforward narrative where he talked about, meeting children and they were helping him to read, and then it made him angry and upset, it would have been, powerful writing, but it wouldn't have been as powerful without the visuals to help his audience connect and feel what he was feeling. And that's what you're going to write in this revisit hook. Please go back through my video, pause it wherever you need to so that you can see what to do in each step of the way. Please write to me through Schoology if you have any questions, and join my Zoom conferences this week and have your questions ready. Good luck.